United Lutheran Seminary presents the Seminary Explores podcast, conversations on faith, art, people, politics, theology, life, and more, with voices from around the corner and around the globe.
Good day. Welcome to the Seminary Explores. Today my guest is the Reverend Edward Smith, who is this year's Call to Lead Excellence in Parish Ministry Award winner. Welcome to the Seminary Explores.
Thank you, Nelson.
Well, the reason you're here is that at least I would like to share, and hopefully you will share, your years in ministry, that you've come to this point in getting this distinguished award. And you've had an interesting and multifaceted ministry vocation. That is, before we get into the specific ministries that you've been a part of, may I ask you how did you anticipate, or did you anticipate such adventures upon graduating from Gettysburg Seminary?
Interesting question, Nelson. I could give you a one-word answer. No, I didn't anticipate any of this, but my intern year was in the Pocono leisure ministry, and I never interned at a church. And anything that happened there, you had to develop on your own. I had a campground services every Sunday at Timothy Lake Campground, and new people coming in every week, so I had to visit all the campsites, invite them to worship service. I had services at Camelback Ski Area. We had to constantly hustle people to come. A honeymoon lodge, counseling for budgets, truck stop ministry, canoe ministry. And if anything happened, you had to develop it. So I didn't have any church experience. But we were building ski chapels and that kind of thing. And so when I got back to seminary, that was my internship.
Oh, okay.
In development and programming, So, so you asked if when I got out, no. So I didn't anticipate that. But having a history in the Poconos, when we started our first church, a church of 43 people, they never had a pastor since 1856 on their own. They were open for us to do anything. And so we started serving 3 campgrounds. In the summer, second home development. We bought a bus and sent it around and had vacation Bible school every Wednesday to meet people. I would just visit everybody in the community, invite them to church, because with 43 people and the total church budget at the time was $19,000, that we were into growth and development. And one interesting...
Where was this call?
Oh, the call was in St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Marshalls Creek, East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And it was an old German church in a swamp, a little building. And as you came down Business 209, there was a big sign in old black gold leather German script, St. Paul's Lutheran Church, turn right 100 yards.
Right.
Well, we took that down and put up 2 big Snoopy dogs, a sky blue, a Snoopy dog in the middle, fruits of the Spirit, Galatians 5, fruits thing. And so people would say, oh, you go to the Snoopy Dog Church. So we did everything to promote the congregation. And then And then my wife starts a school, a parochial school at the church. And so we just then we sponsored some Vietnamese, 21, we wanted to. So one thing just led into another. So I was very dependent upon the secretary. She would say, Rogate Sunday's coming up. And I said, well, what's that?
Uh-huh.
She goes, we go outside and bless the seeds in the soil.
Right.
But nobody was farming in the church anymore. The church was growing because people were moving in from New York and Philadelphia and vacationing up there. So it was a perfect environment for someone from New York, right. Metropolitan New York, to have a ministry.
Oh, okay. And how long were you in that parish?
11 years.
Oh, okay.
After 2 years, because we had campgrounds, since I had interned in the area, I knew some of the campground owners, and the Pocono Raceway, and so we worked a deal with the campgrounds that they gave us a little money, and we had lay people. And 2 years later, we called an intern. And St. Paul's never had a pastor before.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be a dual parish and with leisure ministry, and the other church backed out. And 3 new families had joined the church, and they wanted to call somebody, and they did. And after 2 years, John Hankey, who was very leading in moving the call process along, we wanted to call an intern. He says, well, we don't need an intern. And I said, John, you're absolutely right. We don't need an intern, but look at the opportunity we can give them to experience a positive ministry. He says, well, I'm voting against it. And in my philosophy, no is not an answer. It's a reason for doing the same thing a little differently.
Okay.
But we needed the intern for the campgrounds and stuff, and we called the intern, and his daughter ended up marrying Brian Hunter.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. But, so you were there a number of years, but then I see that you went to Colorado. How do you go from the Poconos to Colorado?
I never had any intention of going to Colorado, and I never had any intention of taking another church. The bishop would say, would you put your name in a discongregation?
Right.
And I was really close to the call process. And the reason for that was Cheryl, my wife, had started a wonderful school. My best friend from college I played football with was a pastoral counselor at the church by this time. We built a new church facility after expanding some classrooms, an education unit. And I got a call from the Bishop of Colorado to put my name in out here up in Dillon for ski ministry. And back east, the bishops control the call process.
Right.
And I thought, I better call up my bishop. And I called up Dr. Toussaint and said, I got a call from the bishop if he wants me to come out and interview. So I decided to be open to the process. And he's yelling at me. He says, you're not going to Colorado. You want to call? I'll give you a call. I said, I'm not going to Colorado. I had nothing to do with this, you know.
Right. It was the other bishop.
And I got a letter of apology from Hagelin. But anyway, I thought, well, we'll go out there in January. We'll do some skiing. And in my dossier I filled out, I sent him a picture of me hitting golf balls off the back of a cruise ship. And what's your goal for the next 3 years? I said, run a 3-hour marathon. And so they never called me up.
Okay.
I don't blame them. But then the bishop sent my dossier up to Loveland. And Frank Carew, chairman of the call committee, worked for HP. He calls me up and said, we'd like to interview you. I said, did you read my dossier? He said, I did. I thought it was interesting. And I said, well, we're not coming to Colorado. You're wasting your time. He said, well, we want to talk to you anyway. We're looking for an associate. And I said, well, to make this fair, I'll pay for my wife's flight out there because we're not coming to Colorado. And I made that very clear to the call committee because my wife's family lived on the other side of the lake.
Right.
My parents came up in the summer. Cheryl had developed this wonderful school. Our congregation was now 315 people. And we were, and the Holy Spirit, Nelson, has a way of overpowering everything.
Indeed.
And they just kept on coming back and back, and I wanted to turn them down at every avenue, but we got to the point that just couldn't do it. And we accepted the call, and then going back to Colorado, this was after the second or third interview,
right,
to tell our congregation we're leaving. I never did that before.
That's a difficult process.
Well, I didn't do it very well. During the sermon was a text with Paul wanted to go to Bithynia. He's called over to Macedonia.
Right.
It's going back and forth. I said, well, what difference does it go to Macedonia over to Bithynia? Cheryl and I have accepted a call to Loveland, Colorado. And you would have thought I dropped a bomb during the sermon.
Yes. Yeah. I think as a parishioner, I would have felt that way.
Yeah, as my roommate often told me, Ed, you don't have very good social skills. Anyway, that's how that. But yeah, and I believe a coincidence and an opportunity is God's way of staying anonymous, and I've always tried to follow those opportunities that came along.
Okay. In reading some of the summary of your years in ministry, you also became involved in Habitat for Humanity. And how did that emerge for you? How did that come about?
Nelson, again, initially, when I moved to Colorado in '83, Tom Ford was the pastor of Our Savior's Lutheran Church in Fort Collins, very social ministry, And when I came there, he said, "Oh, you need to get involved with Habitat." I said, "Love and the mortar joints, theology of the hammer." And I said, "This is ridiculous. I wanted nothing to do with that." I said, "Love and the mortar joints." And anyway, but a year later, he left his church. They kind of pushed him out because he was too social ministry minded, and he got hired by Americus Georgia, Millard Fuller, who was the director of Habitat, as their fundraiser. So in '84, almost '85, Tom called me up and said, "Would you like to go to a Jimmy Carter build, the first one in Chicago, and there'll be 70 people. Would you like to go along?" Mm-hmm. And the opportunist that I am, I said, "Yeah, great." And so that's what happened. And I got involved with building of 5 houses. Chuck Colson from Prisons Fellowship was there. He had some prisoners from Mariana State Prison. Met Jimmy Carter, and Oprah Winfrey showed up. And I didn't know who she was. She comes with a red, yellow dress on for publicity. Uh-huh. And I was in charge of putting people to work. So I said, "She's got to work." So I gave her a hammer, and they said, "That's Oprah Winfrey." I said, "I don't care who she is. I don't know who this lady is." And then so she pounded a couple nails into the thing and stopped. It was a publicity stunt.
Oh my.
But anyway, and so when I came back, we called a meeting in Loveland and invited Millard Fuller to come. And we immediately started our Habitat affiliate. And because I had experience, they elected me president, and we started by building on faith. Millard said, "You dig a hole in the ground, the Lord will provide." So we dug a hole in the ground. Someone bought us a lot. And people are saying, "Well, what are you doing?" "We're building a Habitat house." "Well, can we help?" The city forgave $500 that first year, and we thanked them profusely. Okay. "Thank you for your generous donation,"
Right.
And if you support people, everybody's invaluable in the kingdom. So we thanked them profusely. And now they'll give us 8 free building permits a year. That's worth $35,000. So we have developed good support of the church, the community, and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's a fantastic story. But in the midst of all of this, what was the reaction of your congregation to this involvement? Because very often, congregations want their pastors to stay with them, or just concerned with the local congregational life. I'm not convinced that that's necessarily the truth. The congregation got very much involved. We started a warehouse, a thrift store. The first 5 directors of the thrift store I hired. Being president of a new organization, you can do what you want. But the members participated, but the senior pastor was totally against my involvement with Habitat. And we have a mutual ministry committee that would meet and process everything, mm-hmm. which was very helpful for the life of a congregation. Right.
If someone has an issue or concern. And we would meet, and he, in the process, he didn't want me to be involved with this outreach stuff. And he says, "I work for the church." And I said, "I work for God." And that was an eye-opener to some of the people on the committee. I work for God. I don't work for the church. The church is an instrument of God's grace and love.
Indeed. Okay.
So anyway, but the members were very supportive of that and everything else we did. And so, no, I never had any problem with the members. until I went to Nicaragua.
Okay, and which brings me to my next question: that your years in ministry were not relegated to the United States, but that you went overseas or went outside of the United States. How did your involvement in Nicaragua emerge?
Well, as my friends back here would say, being the competitive opportunist I am, I went to Nicaragua during the Contra War in 1986. Augsburg College sponsored a study program.
Okay.
And the Sandinistas at that time had done a great deal of working throughout the dictator Somoza that we had supported for years and extended universal education and health care to the people. And the war was going on. The whole country was armed. The Sandinistas didn't want anything to happen to us to provide an excuse. And then the Contras weren't going to shoot us. So that was the thing. And then when we started our affiliate, Rocky Mountain Habitat went back there. And then about 5 or 6 years later, Abi Gonzalez asked me, he said, "You want to come to Nicaragua? We're going to build a church." And I said, "I want nothing to do with building a church in Nicaragua." I said,
Why was that? Why that response?
I didn't think they needed a church. I said, "But we will come and build some houses." And so we came, and then they were building this Lutheran church in Cocally, and Abi was delayed in the houses, so our group had a couple days that we helped build a church and meet the people, and we started building houses in Nicaragua from that time on with Habitat for Humanity. And since then, we've built over 60 houses in Nicaragua.
Really? And how often do you go to Nicaragua?
We would go, for over 30 years, we would bring large groups from our church and other churches. The last several years, we had a group 4 years ago, just before the Ortega wanted to become dictator.
Right.
And the country was closed down, so that we had to cancel that group. But only 6 of us went. And then the last couple of years, it's been a small group. This summer, only 8 will go. But sometimes we took, once we had a group of 42 from our church. We brought some doctors and medical missions and whatever gifts people want to share, we've let them do.
Oh, okay. And where did you stay? Where did the group stay when they're down there? Up in Somoto, which is the northern part of the country, we have good friends with the owner of the hotel, Danilo. We stay at his hotel, and we work in Somoto and also Cocally, where the Lutheran church is there, building houses, having a medical mission, a vacation Bible school, a lot of things with the community. So their church, the people in the church, the pastor is totally supported by our congregation and another little congregation. My wife started a scholarship program where over 30 students have been sent to university. And we have a nurse that we support full-time. We put a well in about 14 years ago. And so one project leads to another, but however people want to use their gifts, we allow it to happen. And one eye doctor comes down, and he's got 300 pairs of eyeglasses that are donated. Right.
And there's a little machine you look in, and someone who has poor vision will look into this machine, and it'll immediately tell you what pair of glasses. And the person puts the glasses on, and people like working with it, and they go like, wow.
Oh, wow.
It's like an instant miracle.
Exactly.
Where when the doctors give someone a medicine, there's no immediate change. But they'll come and wait for hours in a line to see the doctor.
Yeah.
And one thing we learned about the Nicaraguans, Nelson, they're thankful for everything. It's the second poorest country in the hemisphere. If you make $4 a day, you're lucky.
Okay.
But they thank God for everything. And we just developed a lot of friends over the years and people down there. And then we go down there, 15 young people will work on a Habitat house with us.
Oh, fantastic.
And so it's one thing has led to the other.
Indeed. Again, I was looking over your biography, and I saw that you're also involved in law enforcement in Colorado.
Yeah.
I'd like to please elaborate on that involvement.
When I got there, the Episcopal priest, Father Sathi Bunyan from India, says, "Oh, you should be a police chaplain." So, in 39 years, I've served as a Loveland police chaplain with some other volunteer chaplains, and it's been a great experience. One thing about the police, it's a closed fraternity. They don't have a lot of friends in the community,
Right.
But as a chaplain, you're part. So we had a basketball team. We played against the Broncos, fundraising, a softball team. They invited me to so a lot of my friends, even today, have been, officers in the police department, and it's been a great experience doing that. But we do all the death notifications. I served as a police chaplain for 39 years, even though I retired 9 years ago from the church. I just retired from that. After 39 years, you get a little tired of being called out in the middle of the night, someone died or, but I thought that was enough. But we do the death notifications and some crisis intervention, but you're really a part of the force. I could go into other things about how it functions that could explain some of the, you have some police violence and others aren't intervening. But
right.
Like in Minnesota,
right,
that situation, they had two rookies and another guy. We would never intervene and correct the police officer in the line of duty. Okay.
Okay.
And it's difficult for an officer to intervene and correct another officer. They tend to support each other. Now today with the crisis, it's, you're supposed to. But as a chaplain, if I'm in a scene with them, the last thing I would do is violate their trust and correct them. Because you're done.
Okay.
They don't trust you.
Okay.
That's a whole different story. But it was a good experience with Loveland, and made a lot of good friends there.
Mm-hmm. And as the word that you used, trust, and so over the years you've had to. At the beginning you had to earn their trust. Would you say?
Loveland has had one of the earliest and largest police chaplain programs in the country.
Okay.
We're a model for other things, and you never violate their trust. You get to know them, and the officers before I got there, the police chaplain program was in force, and it always went well, and they had a positive attitude about the police chaplaincy program.
Oh, okay.
And it continues to today, although there are a lot less chaplains that we had in the past.
Really? Any particular reason for the decrease, do you think?
Well, some of us are retired,
right.
There was an incident in Loveland about something, and so just not as many chaplains as we had, so those who are still there are on call more often.
Oh.
You get a pager and you're on call to respond to anything that they might need you for.
Okay. Well, in these years of ministry, is there any advice or any suggestions that you might give to women and men who desire to consider ministry as a vocation?
I think as a pastor, the most important thing is to visit with your people. Anybody who would visit St. Paul's or in the Poconos or Trinity Lutheran Church, a visitor, I would visit in their homes. And also your members. The more you minister to them, the more trust they build up. you know. Coming out of New York, I always say, if I'm not abusing you, I don't like you, you know. And
you sound like a New Yorker. Yes.
And you know, I think to survive in the ministry, you have to be operating with half a mind, and I qualify for that. But if they think you're crazy, they leave you alone. But the most important thing is building relationships, Nelson, getting to know them, and giving them the opportunity to do things. You don't, you know, people want to give, they want to participate, they want to have an opportunity to serve. And you just facilitate and help them along with that.
Okay. I think that certainly would be helpful to those students and those beginning in ministry, something to remember and to work with.
Yeah, you have a lot of power, influence as a pastor, but when you come into a congregation, there's a lot of other people that have been involved in the life of the church.
Exactly.
You know? And you're not the boss. You're a partnership with them. And as you work with them, you know, and they build up a thing. When I was interviewing in Colorado, one of our members from the church was out there, Donna, and the call committee said to Donna, well, what's he like? And Donna said to the call committee, if you let him do what he wants, you'll be just fine.
Okay.
and you know, it's not that I do what I want, but even Gettysburg Seminary would basically allow me to do it, you know, to be free. Yeah. You know, and so I think the most blessed thing you can do is be a pastor, you know, because...
Be a pastor to the people.
Yeah, well, yeah. You have all these volunteer people who are working with you, helping you do your job. And not that you don't have any difficulties. You know, one story I should tell you, when I got back from Nicaragua in 1986, okay, I was so incensed, Nelson. Now, I'm the associate of the church, you know, that I preached a political sermon blasting Reagan. And a member of the congregation, Fred Anderson, a wonderful guy, was president of the Republican Denver legislature and a good buddy of Reagan. And Nelson, he, after the sermon, you know, I wrote an article in the paper, I went to the schools and talked. He just freaked out in the vestibule.
I'm sure.
And, you know, longtime member of the church. He stopped coming to church.
Right.
So 2 weeks later, I go to his house. I believe everybody's important to the body of Christ. Even if they don't agree with you, they all have gifts. So his wife, Ann, opens up the door and looks at me, and she's shocked that I'm there. She sends me into the lion's den. I don't know what Daniel experienced. And for 45 minutes, Fred Anderson is screaming at me.
Okay.
And when he got exhausted, what do you think I said to him after he stopped?
I have no idea.
I said, Fred, don't leave the church because of me. You were baptized here, you were confirmed here, and you will be here long after I'm gone. 6 years later, when the senior pastor was 65, resigned, you know, resigned, not retired. He had a little group to get rid of me, okay? Fred Anderson led the process of getting 350 names on a petition to consider me.
Wow.
Wow. And then, you know, I got to know Fred a little bit better, and we got to be good friends, but if it wasn't for Fred Anderson, I would not have been called a senior pastor. If Fred Anderson had left the church,
exactly.
You know, and so I think everybody's gifts are important to the life of the church, and I think the worst thing we can do is if people want to leave, allow them to leave. Okay. build that relationship.
Okay. I can't believe our time is up, but I want to thank you for sharing your years of ministry and the adventures that you had. My guest today has been Pastor Edward Smith, who is this year's Excellence in Parish Ministry Award recipient at the United Lutheran Seminary on the Gettysburg campus.
Can I say one thing?
Go ahead.
We have excellent classmates. Some of them are sitting right here in the background. I'm honored to receive the award, but there's so many other pastoral recipients that have done so much in parish ministry.
Well, thank you for those words, and thank you for your years of ministry and your contribution, not only to the church, but to the world. For the Seminary Explores, this is Nelson Strobert. Have a good day.
You have been listening to The Seminary Explores, a production of United Lutheran Seminary with campuses in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We invite you to visit our website at unitedlutheranseminary.edu. All opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of United Lutheran Seminary or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.